Do you yield, Senator Creighton?
Of course. Yes, I yield.
You're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Senator Creighton. We know what the vote's going to be. Democrats will vote against this again. Republicans will vote for it. But I just want to make sure we put everything in context and kind of look at this bill compared to the last one from a historical perspective. You would agree that we've got to look at history in order to inform what we do in the future. Would you agree with that?
First, I'm hoping to be more persuasive today, Senator West, than just that party line vote. But yes, I would agree in what you and I have discussed and worked on in committee in many, many hours, and the points that you have also made related to history.
I too am trying to be more persuasive today. But you would agree. And let's just talk about the genesis of the concept of choice vouchers, that particular concept. You would agree that this concept came out of segregation and racism. Would you not agree with that?
We had obviously different historical perspectives provided by witnesses in committee. That was certainly one of them. So yes, I would agree that's definitely one of the origins.
What are the other origins?
Well, you and I listened to the testimony together. It was just talking about need in general for students to have opportunities to serve their particular customized needs that they weren't finding elsewhere. So there were different plans established, and from Reconstruction all the way until the 90s with Milton Friedman and others coming up with these different plans that look very different in scope and nature and who they serve.
But you would agree that this whole concept started during Reconstruction, right after the Civil War. Would you agree with that? When there was a fact that Caucasians didn't want to go to school with Black and Hispanic kids. Would you agree with that?
I already did, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so they ended up going to churches to get away from minorities. Okay. That's how it started. And I agree with you. Over the years, there have been different iterations of it. And then we go to Brown versus the Board of Education. And we see Friedman involved in that scenario where we ended up having different iterations of choice. We see Texas through John Shepard, who was the Attorney General of the state of Texas back then, basically saying, slow down, Supreme Court, in terms of overturning separate but equal. How, sir, do we make certain, and I know, let me just say this from the very beginning, I know where you are in terms of what you're trying to do, the Lieutenant Governor and also the Governor, making certain that parents have choices. Not the private schools have choices, but the parents have choices. So from that perspective, I have this conversation with you about questions. When we look at this concept, and historically, it looks like it's always been previously, in order to maintain a segregated school system. Am I wrong about that?
About the
history? If you look at the facts, what this system has done, we see more in our, when I say system, I'm talking about the public school system, the charter school system, and any other system of education that's been established in this country. We have a constitutional duty to have a free public school system, right? In the state of Texas?
That's right.
Okay. When we look at our public school system, haven't we seen more and more Anglos leaving the public school systems in the state where it's now an overwhelmingly minority? Is that a true statement?
It could be, yes.
Oh, I want to deal with the facts. Is that true? You don't know whether it is or not?
The data I have is on school choice and how integration has worked and how the numbers look today, so.
Okay, so in terms of our public school system, it's predominantly minority now, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. And when you begin to look at our private school system, it's predominantly white right now. Is that correct?
It may still be.
Well, I'm trying to get with the facts so we can make decisions based on facts.
Yeah.
I suggest to you that the facts that I've been able to glean suggest that that is the case right now. The fact is that probably 80% of our public school system is white. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
It's close. The numbers I have are a little bit lower.
How close is it?
Yeah.
How close is it?
In the 70 percentile.
70 percentile?
Yeah.
So we are about to fund an education, a component of this state's education system being private schools that is currently 75% white. Is that what is about to happen?
Well, what's about to happen, Senator West, and I appreciate your points, certainly respect them, is we have a lottery selection where 80% of the program is weighted and prioritized for disabled students and income vulnerable students. So in that lottery selection, obviously we have to know who's applying, and then the fairness of that lottery selection will tell us exactly how those ESA slots are awarded. What we do know, and I'll finish with this, is when we look across all programs, and this is 32 states, 74 programs, we find that choice students in private schools are less likely to be white, more likely to be Hispanic, and significantly more likely to be black than private schools without choice programs. So not only that, but in Florida's tax credit ESA program, so we're talking about not just choice programs, but their ESA, participants were most likely to be Hispanic, 39%, black, 28%. The third most common group was white students at 27%. So my contention is that school choice is something that, based on your arguments of history and what we see in the demographic breakdown of public schools, would be better.
Okay, stay right where you are.
I will.
How did you get that information?
Well, we use Florida's ESA tax credit program statistics, and then we also have relied on studies from EdChoice that not just cover academic performance and overall student and family advantages and disadvantages on surveys, but we also cover the integrated and demographic related components within those studies, and it's based on several different states of a footprint.
Okay, now what I'm hearing you say is that the methodology that was utilized in order to get the information, part of which was surveys, and then from the education assistance organizations that I would assume got the information from the private schools. Am I correct? Is that the methodology that you're using to make the statements that you're making?
Florida's information, their arm of state government, like we have the comptroller building the framework, is tracking and following this information just as your amendment to the bill in 2023 would require. So I'm trusting their arm of tracking information just as I'm trusting your amendment to our bill that's still in this version. So yes, that's how they get the information, and we would have to trust those studies that are well documented, published, validated, and confirmed, unless you have studies that show different.
Well, I have studies now that shows that in the state, what's happening in the state of Texas. But my deal is this is gonna pass. But again, what I've heard you say is that you will be insistent that we're able to track the information to make certain that we're not setting up another segregated component of public schools of schools in the state of Texas. Is that correct? Not trying to make this an all-white thing.
That's correct. In fact, I would say the opposite would be our result in a school choice program that if kids are trapped in any all-white school, all-black school, all-Hispanic school, as they might have been segregated 60 years ago, this plan today allows them not to be trapped by zip code, but to have opportunities at many different education environments.
And I understand it, and I understand exactly where you are.
Understanding that is the impetus behind why this bill's even on my desk.
But see, here's the piece: we've got to be able to see transparency in the information. Your goal is a laudable goal, okay? But what I'm saying is, I've got to be able, years from now, or whoever's sitting in these seats, have got to be able to look at the evidence to make certain that we're moving forward and we're not moving backwards.
Absolutely, and I respect that completely. You and I.
And so what I'm asking you, the question, Mr. President. Oh, okay. That I'm asking. We've got to make certain, as it relates to this particular bill, that a methodology is in place in order to get the information necessary to assure that we're not propping up and providing state dollars to a system that will be segregated. You agree with that?
I agree completely.
All right, now, let's kind of go through the bill. As it relates to, hold on for 1 second. As it relates to accountability, what we have in the bill, well, as a general topic, what's in this bill compared to the bill that we had last session, we prioritize families that were in, I think, 185% of the poverty level. In this one, we're defining low income differently. What's the difference between the definitions?
The difference in the threshold for the qualifications and eligibility, Senator West, were very consistent on the income vulnerable side. So we start at the lowest income levels, and this is within 80% of the framework of the use of the dollars. And then it's up to the 500% of the poverty level, which would be a middle class cutoff of a firefighter and a teacher with 3 or 4 kids at home.
And what's that amount, say a family of 4?
For a family of 4, that'd be 160. For a family of 3, that would be 124.
Okay, now, are we prioritizing persons within your definition of low income, or all of them equal? You understand what I'm asking you?
That framework is up to that threshold. So
right, I understand that. That's why I'm asking, are we prioritizing?
Yeah.
I mean, if we have a family that's 100% within the poverty level, does that family, based on where their income is, get priority over a family that's within 400% of the poverty level? Or are they treated equally?
They are, and they are because of the selection process.
And so if you have a family that's in a zip code of a low-performing school, are they treated the same as someone within 500% of poverty?
Well, it's not DNF-rated categorization. It's truly special needs and income vulnerable students.
I hadn't gotten to that one yet. So all of those categories, if they're in the low-income category, are treated equally, and they have to go into a lottery.
That's correct.
And if they are chosen, then that's one thing, but if they're not, it's altogether something else, right?
That's correct.
If indeed what we're trying to do is, based on what you said, is to provide educational opportunity, shouldn't we be prioritizing those persons within the lower income, as you've defined it, in terms of awarding them these scholarships?
Well, Central West, I mean, we are prioritizing because it is an up to cutoff, $800 million for prioritization for low income that all can apply in those thresholds from 100% of the poverty level up to that middle class cutoff. So what we don't want to do is exclude within a gigantic program that a state like Texas can offer with the dollars that we have available. We don't want to exclude the middle class of a firefighter and a teacher and a few kids from that prioritization, but the bulk of it will be income thresholds down to that 100% of the poverty level on those applications.
So to answer my question is all of them, regardless of their circumstances, economic circumstances, educational circumstances, geographical location circumstances will all be treated the same in the low income category. Is that correct?
They absolutely will be.
But you know, let me go back to history. You've been advancing this particular legislation for a long time. And I've consistently heard you say in the past that we want to make certain that we take care of the kids in the disadvantaged schools first. This doesn't do that. This puts them into a group with everybody else. And if it's your luck of the draw, you may be able to get a scholarship. But if it's not, then you don't get a scholarship. Isn't that correct?
The applications in the 80% category, Central West,
I'm talking about
will cover all walks of life, all income vulnerable students and students with disabilities in many different categories, but they may not be in a school that's rated D. They just may themselves personally not be thriving in that school, or there may be a safety concern, a fentanyl concern, a bullying concern, some other reason of grandmother that doesn't live in that district that has to offer them supports or guidance.
Senator, with all due respect, I understand exactly what you're saying, but that's not the question that I asked. I thought in the past that you've articulated that the priorities should be going to kids that are in low-performing schools and impoverished communities. But what I'm hearing you say, as a result of the language in this particular bill, is that they can get in a lottery, and just like, you remember that, what was it, $5 billion lottery the other night? Did you get a ticket? I didn't get a ticket the other night.
No.
But I had a 1 in a probably billion chance in order to win that lottery. And so what you're saying now is that these kids have the same sort of chance, those in those circumstances I just articulated, have a chance of getting a scholarship, even though your previous arguments have been based on those should be the ones that get the priority.
Well,
how do you justify that?
We have your framework that you offered to the bill in this version, Central West, which will, all of our members with oversight over this program will be able to assess the demographics from an economic standpoint across many different types of demographics to establish and learn exactly who is a recipient within this plan. But the facts show that all across the nation, these ESA plans that are offered help the most income vulnerable students in that particular state, and that will be consistent with this plan as well. You voted against the bill that limited to D and F rated schools 4 times, so I took that as a signal that that was not important to you.
Well, you know what, let me put it this way. You're giving those students that you were advocating for a chance based on a lottery,
yes,
to be prioritized in getting a voucher. That's what you're doing. But if that's what you want, and then you say we can assess it. Assessments occur after the fact.
Yes. Yes, I did not want someone, a legislator, to be able to call a buddy that knows a dad and say, hey, let me help you get into this plan because I know you're low income. I want them to have a true chance, a true shot at gaining acceptance and being eligible for one of these ESAs. And then when we review the success of the program, which that's what it will be, successful, we can decide for the future how we want this program to look.
Okay, so let me close out this question. Am I right or am I wrong that a child in a low-performing school has a random shot at, let me back it up. If there were parents of a child in a low-performing school, their chance of getting a voucher is the same as a child that comes from a home that's making $150,000, $160,000. It's the same chance.
Well, we see when we drop the maps of low-performing schools over income vulnerable areas of the state, we see overlap in those exact areas of interest. So we're gonna, yes, you're in that 80% category, with it being up to a teacher and a firefighter with 4 kids at home having a chance, just like someone that is also income vulnerable, but more so. Yes, those chances will be equal within that 80% pool. But
Right.
That's a gigantic pool of selection, and that's how we show our commitment as Texas legislators to put special needs and income vulnerable as the highest commitment and priority within this program.
Income vulnerable being up to 500% of the poverty level. Okay.
Up to that.
Up
yes.
to, I understand, up to, but
Yeah.
they're not given a priority. They're in a group of students that have the same opportunity in order to get a voucher. Okay, let me move on. Let's talk about the difference between the vouchers and homeschools. All right, now I understand we're setting up these education assistance organizations, which frankly are already set up in other states, and they're going to be coming here in the state of Texas. I think they're already here because they've been having input into the decision-making process of this particular bill. Okay? Am I wrong about that? Have we been talking to those education assistance organizations to structure this particular bill?
Yeah, we've researched as much as we can from other states on who they rely on and best practices, yes.
And so they'll be here in the state of Texas trying to get the contracts also from the comptroller's office. Isn't that correct?
I'm not aware of that.
I would bet you they would.
We don't even have, if this plan keeps getting rejected, I don't know why they would even.
Well, it's not going to get
I don't
rejected.
even know why they'd land a plane here, because you keep voting against it.
But politics, you got the politics now. You got the politics. And I mean,
I don't know, but I don't, honestly, I genuinely don't know about that.
let me assure you that they're going to be here. Would you object, sir? Let me ask you this. Do you believe that we should have pay lobbyists with state dollars?
Paid lobbyists with state dollars?
Yes.
Like teacher organizations that are paid for by.
I'm just talking the general concept right now.
Oh, general, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm for Senator Middleton's ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
taxpayer-funded lobbyists. All right, who's providing the dollars for this particular program? Taxpayers, right?
Correct.
And so would you agree to an amendment that a Middleton, where's Middleton? Is he on the floor? Okay, would you agree to an amendment that no taxpayers' dollars can be used to lobby?
I think that rather than insert something into the ESA program, Senator West, we'll consider Senator Middleton's bill when it gets to the floor, and I don't think it will carve out the ESA program if and when it passes.
So the answer to the question is no?
That'd be no. I think we should do that as a blanket
so
policy.
if that particular bill, if that bill doesn't pass, then it will be okay for those organizations that are currently working in other states to come here, use dollars appropriated by the taxpayers in order to lobby us for additional dollars, changes in the law, and also regulations, if Middleton's bill doesn't pass. Correct?
Absolutely. There's 5,000 registered lobbyists in Austin. I imagine next year there'll be 6,000.
All right, so y'all heard that. Taxpayers' dollars will be able to be used in order to lobby us for this particular program, and all of us have been against that in a long time. In terms of homeschool, now, we don't regulate our homeschools. Homeschool families will be able to get $2,000, correct?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, before we go there, let me finish up with the 80%. We're talking about education assistant organizations, and that these schools, private schools that participate, have to be a part of an association. Is that correct?
Private schools that participate need to be accredited. That's
Right. And how many accrediting agencies? You specifically named one in the bill. Is that correct?
TEPSAC.
Are there any others other than TEPSAC?
There may be after this session.
I bet you there will be if those lobbyists can get to it.
But yes, the Texas Education Agency also.
And so, is that will it take an amendment of the bill to add additional accreditation agencies?
Again, Central West, I actually like where you're going there, but I would rather that travel through separate legislation that will be filed this session.
No, that wasn't a question. I said, will it take an amendment to the bill to include other associations similar to that one?
I like where you're going with that, Senator West, but I would rather that policy be considered in another bill that's traveling this session. That's my same answer.
Okay, so we'll take another another bill. Okay, so we have accredited schools and non-accredited schools that would be able to participate in this particular program, right? If it's an accredited private school, you'll be able to get 10,000, 11,000, depending upon the characteristic of the student, be disabled or otherwise. But if you're not an accredited school and students participate, you can get how much?
2,000, that would be the homeschool opportunity.
Now, is that only the home schools or just a student in general that goes to a non-accredited
It can apply it can apply to a micro school that's, let's say, that's not accredited yet, but there's incentives in the bill for them to work towards that 2-year accreditation.
Then you bring up the other point. How long does this private school have to be in existence before they can participate in this program? Can it be fly by night? Can it be online? Can I set up a school tomorrow and be able to accept students? How long?
Yes, there will. I'm not sure about the time, but there will be new schools, just as we're seeing in Florida. There's a 74% increase in rural parts of that state having more private school opportunities over the course of the program.
I'm glad you picked Florida.
But it took 20 years.
I'm glad you picked Florida.
Yeah.
When those schools came online, were there any problems when they first came online and were able to begin to accept students? What problems did they have?
There's always problems with startups. That's why the accreditation process is strict.
And that's why I'm asking the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you believe that there should be a minimum number of years that those schools should be in existence to prove that they are worthy of accepting these students and not wasting taxpayer dollars?
I believe across the nation, Senator West, we have really good information that shows that if you're talking about the approvals and the requirements and the framework of a private school compared to other schools, it's just as rigorous, if not more, in many categories. For the accredited school, it's 2 years. For the non-accredited school, it can be a new school.
You've kind of gone a different direction. That was good, though. That was very good. You're talking about the accrediting agency. I'm talking about the school itself. The accreditation process probably takes up to 2 years to go through one of those organizations that's in your bill.
That's right.
But my question is this: shouldn't those schools be in existence for at least 3 years? And it can be a part of the accrediting timetable too, to see exactly what type of school we have, as opposed to a school pops up online and begin to accept students. Shouldn't there be, members, a timetable for those schools to be in existence before they're able to accept students?
Well, better
I
than
mean, many of us talk about transparency all the time and accountability.
yeah. Better than government, Senator West, moms and dads are going to police that, right? I mean, there are homeschool opportunities every day, and this is why.
I'm not talking about homeschools there.
But I am just for a second, because I'll segue and it'll make sense. This is why the lower threshold of $2,000 is the qualifier for a school that's working to be accredited is set as it is, rather than the higher $10,000 amount for the ESA. And obviously they have incentives to work fast towards that accreditation, but there will be new schools, there will be new homeschool opportunities, there will be micro schools, and to require a 3-year track record on those would put strings on homeschool opportunities that don't currently exist.
I mean, in terms of, I didn't say anything about homeschools. I mean, what is a homeschool? Make sure everybody knows what a homeschool is.
It could be a family teaching at home. It could be a pod.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it could evolve into, you know, a bigger entity, depending on who they're serving and how they're serving. Could be in their neighborhood, could be in their community.
So suffice it to say that, so we can move on because I know other people have questions also. Suffice it to say that there should not be a minimum time period that a school needs to be in existence before it could take advantage of having students receiving vouchers as a part of their student body. There should not be a minimum time period.
Well, the time period for pre-approval, it includes some incredible safeguards already, Senator West. Comprehensive background checks for all employees, verification against the state's do not hire registry, a review through the interagency reportable conduct database. From the perspective of the Education Code, homeschooling is functionally no different than an unaccredited private school. That's why they're at the lower threshold, but the bill incentivizes them to work quickly towards accreditation. That's going to be tougher, but there's great incentive for them to get there because all their students would qualify for that higher amount. We're going to have some new schools that you and I don't know about that will be the best schools in Texas for a generation from now. I mean, these opportunities are a good thing for Texas students and moms and dads. That's why we have a school choice bill.
I need some apple pie now, okay?
You and I together.
Again, my question was,
yes,
you do not believe that taking into consideration everything that has to be done in the certification process, that timeline, there shouldn't be, and we don't even know what that timeline is going to be with the comptroller. That's number one. That a school should not be in existence a minimum period of time before participation in this program. Given what's happened in other states about early entrances into these type of programs and some of the fraud and abuse that has occurred.
No, I would trust the families to make the decision, and then if there is a fraud allegation, that is reported by private contract. It's policed and investigated and turned in to the local district attorney for immediate enforcement action, and that ESA could be suspended on the spot.
I'm not talking about the ESA, I'm talking about the schools.
Well, all associated with it.
All right, so I think you've answered the question. No, you don't believe there should be a minimum time requirement for a school to be in existence before receiving tax dollars in this particular program. That's the answer to your question. And there's a differentiation between accredited and non-accredited. Homeschools versus private schools. And it's a different amount as it applies to how much students get in homeschools or unaccredited schools and accredited schools.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chairman, I have a series of other questions, but I know other members have questions also. And what I'd like to do is how do I do this? I want to yield the floor at this point without with the ability to come back and ask further questions after other members have had their ability to do so.
Senator West, that sounds fine.
All right, thank you.